Hello and welcome to our fifth episode of Naturally Educated.
Today we'll be discussing the true meaning of environmental recovery, how we can actively engage in environmental recovery, and finally some local community initiatives we should know about.
So I'd like to turn to speak to our guest, the Dean of Zayed University's College of Natural and Health Sciences, Faris Hawari. He has a lot of experience and even conducted some studies in the field. First off, Faris, thank you for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
So I wanted to start you off with, what is environmental recovery? And how far gone are we right now?
Yeah. Well, environmental recovery basically is to bring things back as it should be. When we recover something, we bring it back to its natural states. So recovery is the same as natural succession, but without the help of the man. Often nature or environment adjusts itself to bring balance to its component after it receives some stresses or disturbances. These disturbances could be natural or could be man-made. Now, environment can respond to that, but if it reaches its maximum capacity, it needs help. So we need to, intervene, and we need to recover. We need to help the environment to recover. So basically, environmental recovery, in technical term, I don't want to be too much technical, is one of the most effective strategies to achieve sustainable development and help restore communities to normal living conditions. And again, as I mentioned, this is usually happen following an environmental or natural disasters. Both, they disturb the environment. Like if we talk about hurricanes, we talk about earthquakes, volcanoes. It's similar like, pollution disasters or oil spill. They impact the environment in many ways. And, the recovery steps usually starts with, having a natural disaster management plan. We need to restore the lands. We need to reclaim, to put a proposal to reclaim the ruined area, reclamation projects, and of course, improving infrastructure comes also in the picture. How far we are going, currently progress really is going extremely well, and awareness has picked up as we have created more sustainable future, and people became more aware than decades in the past. And also, as a matter of fact, various organizations and governments right now take several steps to ensure proper environmental recoveries for communities, not just ecological relief, but going beyond. This means going to immediate measures taken to support life and sustain morale after the disasters, reestablishing the economies and social and cultural lives of the people concerned. And of course, the ultimate aim is, again, to rebuild damaged areas and bring things as it should be. So in essence, this is what is environmental recovery.
Yes, thank you. Why don't you tell us about what you do at the College of Natural and Health Sciences?
Well, we're doing a lot of things. We're doing research that focus on waste management. We're doing actually some experimental designs to remediate polluted areas. We have, established a coral propagation lab that, focus on, growing corals in the lab and seeding it back in the Gulf. We have a nursery that, studies the health of mangrove and Avicennia marina. We also, in collaboration with the UAE Space Agency, we developed a very advanced remote sensing lab that study and observe the Earth to manage the natural resources, disasters, salinity. We're doing a lot of things. This is on the environment. Of course, we have other strength in public health and psychology, but here I would like just to focus on the environmental aspects.
And going back to my first question, how far gone are we right now with environmental recovery?
We're doing great. I mean, we have a lot of environmental impact statement studies. We have a lot of, project to restore the degraded environment. The story of increasing the mangrove in Abu Dhabi and the Emirate is a textbook example. Everybody's talking about it all over the world. The fact that we green the deserts and we are living here and bringing these wonderful, natural ecosystems. It's an evidence that we're doing great in terms of recovery.
That is brilliant. I want to jump in here, Mr. Faris, to talk about, I guess the elephant in the room, right? Something that is on a lot of people's mind, which is the pandemic. So, what people don't realize is the pandemic or COVID-19 had an effect on the environment, both positively and negatively. And I want from your perspective to tell us more about that.
Well, COVID has brought a lot of changes worth of decades in terms of, digital transformations, in terms of changing our behavior. But, COVID has fundamentally, really changed the world and presents unprecedented challenge to the environment. Some of the negative environmental impact can be, summarized in a few points. For example, increase the production of biomedical waste, as the production of the medical waste has increased globally since the outbreak of the coronavirus, and this represents significant threat to public health. You want to dispose the waste, you want to find landfills. And of course, my concept for the waste is not waste. Waste is a resource out of its place. And we need not just to exercise the 3 R's, reuse, reduce, and recycle, but refuse, repurpose, and rethink as well. So with all of these things come a lot of challenges. The use of safety equipment and random disposal to protect against the viral infection. This is also a challenge. And currently people, as they're using face masks, hand gloves, and other equipments, adding to the healthcare waste. The amount of waste is really huge due to the increased use of personal protective equipment at the local and global levels. And since the emergence of COVID-19, the manufacturing and usage of plastic-based personal protective equipment, peaked up to, unprecedented levels. The face mask and other plastic, that could be source of microplastic that lives and impact the ecosystem and the marine life for decades, could become serious a problem, really.
You talked about a lot of the waste that we're generating, and like you mentioned, most of it is disposable. All the masks and the gloves and so on. However, I guess some of it came with a bit of an awareness where people said, you know what, instead of using all these masks, I'm gonna just buy a reusable mask, a cloth one, right?
True.
Other people, instead of all the travel that we did previously, other people decided, you know what, let's just have virtual conferences. So I guess there are sort of positive aspect too. Would you care to elaborate on that?
Of course. I mean, the big one, the grand one, is actually reducing the air pollution and the greenhouse gas emission due to closure of industries, transportation, and businesses during the lockdown when the pandemic started. This has led to a sudden drop in green gas emissions, reduction in nitrous oxides and carbon dioxides, and this is really helped the environment. Also reducing the water pollution because of the absence of industrial pollution during the closure period. That was also, helpful and very, advantageous. Also, the quarantine and lockdown tactics limit noise pollution by forcing individuals to stay home, reducing global economic activities, and so on and so forth. Besides what you just mentioned about the awareness to reuse, the masks and to be more sustainable while fighting this global pandemic.
That's true. So I guess these are all great aspects that that a lot of people are considering, and obviously it will help on the overall environmental thinking. I hear a lot of people now thinking about buying stuff locally, doing more of local tourism, ecotourism, and so on. But thanks for shedding a light on that, I guess.
I wanted to jump in now, having discussed all of this impact and all of this human impact on the environment. I was wondering, which of our environments need recovering most?
Well, this is an excellent question to ask about which I will say all the environmental media should receive equal attention: soil, water, forest, coastal areas, and you name it. And why we need to do that? Because really all of them are affected equally by the enormous amounts of waste, material, and sometimes poor management in some cases. For this reason, I would say that we should focus on all of them. Now, national and the local government are increasing research work on waste management, including medical waste, household waste, and hazardous waste in general. Now, for us here in the Emirate, I mean, I would say away from the pandemic and a normal condition, and God willing, we will be back to normal in the near future, and I'm optimistic. The air quality. Air quality is important. Air quality, it's not because of man-made reasons, but because of nature. Because we receive dust from all over the places. By the way, we receive dust. We don't send dust. The oceans of sandy dunes around it, we receive it from distance, from many areas, and this impact our climate, it impact our air quality. And that's something, particulate matter and air quality will continue to be a challenge in the future. Right now, Emirates is a wonderful, successful example about dealing with the water shortages. I mean, we developed both management scenarios and water production scenarios, and we conserve, but water, still a main challenge, but not as before.
I love how you were talking about all the 3 R's and the other 3 R's you mentioned. I'd wonder, when it comes to environmental recovery, which one of those R's is probably the most effective?
Well, all of them. But, rethink. I mean, when we think about things, we have to do it in a different way, in an innovative way, in a new way. Think outside the box and be sustainable, do more with less, be innovative. So rethinking is the way to go. I would say it's bind all the others together.
Oh, well, I'm glad to hear that we have different ways to apply these things,
Yes.
and definitely rethinking is my favorite option of those R's as well.
Yeah, so I really want to touch on disaster recovery as a concept. So I'll give you an example. When it comes to, for instance, oil spill disaster prevention measures, right?
Yes.
We have improved forecasting and warning systems, coastal afforestation projects, cyclone shelters and embankments, and so on. So these are sort of measures that help us prevent such disasters from, getting to a worse state and so on. I wonder, how do we engage in such environmental action early in a disaster recovery situation?
Yes. Well, if you look at the oil spill itself, I mean, oil spill, we usually use it because it's kind of like a textbook example of where scientists, engineers, social scientists, and public comes together. When you have an oil spill, a lot of things happen to this oil spill. Part of the oil spill dissolved in the water, part emulate, part diffuse, part evaporate to reach far distance. When it will reach the nearby desalination plant, will it reach the nearby fishery, coastal communities? How do we tell them that something bad is coming? How to prepare them to deal with it? So all of this, it's a typical textbook example of talking about an environmental problem and an interdisciplinary approach to deal with it. Now, human activities in general cause the environmental disaster. And as I mentioned, the oil spill is one of the biggest environmental disasters because it threatens the marine systems, the terrestrial ecosystems, reduces biodiversity in the ocean, and deposit a huge amount of toxins that bioaccumulate, causing catastrophic consequences. It provides also clear evidence that ecosystem restoration efforts are challenging and sometimes requires decades to deal with. Now, first, a quick environmental assessment usually are conducted to deal with the oil spill by environmental expert assessing the oil volume, prevalence, hazards, and toxicity. Yes, we need to prevent the problem, preventing the problem by forecasting, by, predicting when this oil spill will reach certain places, how to intervene, how to reclaim it, how to disintegrate it, transform it into, some different hazard forms, and we can do that. So prevention is one of the most critical aspects of disaster management, but it's also the hardest part to implement. I mean, it's not easy. You're talking about ocean. If you go right now on a fishing trip, you see how big is the ocean and how difficult it is to manage the ocean or anything in the ocean. So the foundation of prevention planning consists of hazard identification. And again, this is not easy. What is the real danger that the community will face? From where it will come, from which source, at what time, how we're going to communicate it, and also assess the vulnerability of the whole situation. Now, one of the things that really we try to do here at Zayed University is developing early warning systems using satellite images and drones technology and remote sensing technologies, and we tested it just for experiments, and we have some successes at monitoring some changes and some natural environmental hazards away from the oil spills, by the way. So early warning systems are an essential component of the prevention process, since they assist in decreasing the economic losses and the number of injuries caused by any catastrophe such as the oil spill. So this is basically, my reflection on this.
I mean, these are all, brilliant ways of dealing with this, and obviously they should have been there earlier, because as you mentioned, how devastating an oil spill could be to the marine ecosystem. Yes. Which is actually one of the most valuable ecosystems we have in a coastal country like the UAE. I wonder, have they adapted these practices due to COVID-19? Was it like a big, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, it is important because, when we talk about the coastal systems in Emirates here, the coral reef come into the picture, okay? And the coral reef is, vulnerable for a lot of things, including oil spill, climate change, and it is very important because it protects the coastal region by lowering the force of waves that reaches the shore. It's also, play as a nursery for the, fisheries. And also it decrease the warm temperature of the ocean, by the way. Warmer air temperature and rising carbon dioxide living in salt water can also bleach it. So it's like two-way relation. Coral may push algae out of the ocean by changing temperatures by as little as 2 degrees Fahrenheit. So the point here is there is a very strong link between environmental recovery, oil spills, coral reef, and the system in general. It's an ecosystem.
So now that we're talking about ecosystems, I was wondering about the UAE. How do we begin environmental recovery in our own ecosystems here?
Well, by assessing which one is most impacted, vulnerable. I just gave an example of the coral reef. For example, sure you probably know that we have in Abu Dhabi about 1,190 square kilometers of coral reefs, and this puts the UAE about in the rank of the 38th globally in terms of coral reef size. And the Environment Agency of Abu Dhabi and the Ministry of Environment and the universities, they are doing great to recover the coral and protect the coral reefs and the coastal areas. In Emirates here, the coral reefs are currently threatened, by the way. Roughly 90% of the corals in Abu Dhabi are extinct. So we need to do something about that. And it's not easy. I mean, we tried with major project, lasted for 3 years to grow coral back in the ocean. And it was, fun research line, but there was a lot of disappointments. I mean, we put the coral back, it dies, because of very high temperatures, bleaching. We had limited successes here and there, and we are continue to explore what is the best method to optimize the growth of coral back in the ocean. These are important recovery projects that we need to continue improving and do more of the same. The single most significant world danger for coral in general is the climate change. And this is a big problem. Everybody is responsible at the individual level, at the local level, national and global levels. And, we've done a lot of progresses there in terms of management, in terms of carbon capture, in terms of gasifications, burners, reclamation and remediation technologies to improve the climate. But again, still there's more to do.
So I was wondering then, you mentioned climate change impacting this. What are we looking at from climate change that's making it difficult for whether it's the coral reef recovery work or any other recovery work for that matter?
Well, the scale of the problem. I mean, the scale of the problem. It is what happened usually is not necessarily within your border. I mean, it's a global. I mean, and we're not talking about the global climate shift patterns that happens during the geological cycles. In the last 100 years, we messed up the hydrocarbon cycle. We extracted a lot of the carbon that the geological history put together in millions and millions of years. We got it out in hundreds of years. How are you going to manage it? It's a time scale, okay, and also spatial scale. We escalated the release of the natural carbon that took the Earth, again, millions and millions of years to sink it down, to stable it, to put it in oceans, and even in oil and coal and shale and you name it. So we extracted that, and so it is not easy, to bring things back as it was. But technologies like the amino-based carbon capture is doing good. There is a dream in the future where you put carbon capture traps in the wind farms, and it capture the excess carbon and it takes it away to where it should belong, whether underground or you put it in enhanced oil recovery or whatever good purpose for it. But again, this is too idealistic. It sounds like science fiction, but it could happen.
That's true. I mean, technology can only do so much, right? The onus is upon us to sort of change our behavior. You did mention how, you did mention how the coral reefs in Abu Dhabi are impacted in a really serious way. You're talking about, what you mentioned, like a 10% of the historical coral reefs that we had. The issue with this, like you mentioned as well, is global. So the individual's carbon footprint, regardless of whether you're impacting directly our environment or not, eventually will cause an impact on the coral reefs in Abu Dhabi.
High. It's pretty high. Of course.
So,
Absolutely.
so actually, from your perspective, I want to understand what is the importance of environmental education for environmental recovery.
Yes. Well, environment, it's interdisciplinary, and you have environmental scientists, a guy who try to understand why things are happening. You have the engineer is trying to design to intervene and make things work better or clean. You have the people who love to describe how beautiful the environment, and they want to change the people behavior and the psychological behavior and the stigmas and the stereotype about certain environmental issues to the better. So environmental education is really an interdisciplinary field, and taking from different social, physical, and biological sciences. And environmental education also, it's a knowledge, okay? And we need to have this knowledge to know the current state and the prospects of the nature itself. It teaches us, okay, as citizens, teaches students to explore all issues related to their well-being. And of course, we need to do that in an intelligent way, in one purpose in mind: to conserve it, to sustain it, and to make it last for the future. So environmental education can create feelings of ownership, by the way, and the civic engagement and empowerment. And also at the university, we embarked on a service learning program where we teach students environmental concepts through serving, through going to the field, through participating, through volunteering, through internship. And, our students are really enjoying it. Active youth engagement is a must when we're talking about the environment, actually, and to create the culture about environmental education. So active youth engagement, as I mentioned, focus on many issues. And, we need to start these wonderful environmental values at, an early stage, really, and to prepare engaged citizens and in the environment and understand the environment and develop the skills to study and protect it, not necessarily as a field, as a discipline to work or their own discipline. No, this is something that they can do to enjoy, to spend time to contribute to the community and part of their civic engagements.
Indeed. I mean, I want to personally thank you for the work that you do in your perspective as a dean in a local university. And I want to, thank you as well for joining us today. It was great getting to know you and getting to know all the work that is really impactful and really meaningful. So again, thank you so much for joining us, Faris, today.
Thank you very much for having me, and we'll see you later.
Thank you so much, Faris, and thank you to everyone for listening. You can also hear the rest of our discussions on the environment on other episodes, so make sure you don't miss on those either. This is Majid Al-Qasimi
and Abdulrahman Al-Zaabi signing out.
Bye, guys.